What's good, people? What's good? It's about that time to randomly relate. First rants, no hate. All right, so look, a comparison was made about Deontay Wilder losing and coming back, right? And people talked about George Foreman losing and Joe Frazier losing to Foreman and Ken Norton getting knocked out by Foreman, right? Pacquiao getting knocked out and coming back. Now, for everybody that's in defense of Wilder or any fighter who gets a loss and then because you want to see that person lose and you're saying, you know, good, I told you so, or whatever, okay, that's take all of that outside and just let's deal with reality. Even George Foreman himself, okay, who got beat by Ali, there's a difference. Okay, there's differences that people don't look at. One, Foreman and Ali was putting it on each other. Okay, they was putting it on each other, and Ali, you know, he was 32 years old. He was never the same fighter when he came back as he was in the first part of his career, but he was still a great fighter. Okay, he still had enough to beat anybody if he strategized right and go out there and can do what he, you know, what he was supposed to, as long as he was able to, you know, Ali had a lot of reserve, man. He was a tough guy. They was putting it on each other, okay? Mentally, it bothered George. It messed him up in a way where George was making excuses about being poisoned and all. It's just a lot, okay? You know, he's paranoid, man. He embarrassed himself and fought 5 guys in one night. And I remember a guy telling a story about Foreman. George Foreman was so great. He fought 5 guys in one night. He fought 5 meatballs in one night, man. Those guys he fought was, I mean, seriously. But after he lost to Ali, he had some wins. You know, he had a back and forth brawl with Ryan Lyle. You know, they put it on each other. And he lost to Jimmy Young in the decision. I think that aura of invincibility, that of him was gone. But, you know, George Foreman disappeared. And then he made a comeback in his late 30s. I think he was 36, 37 when he came back or something like that. But George never really took actual just a beating, okay? He was able to give back what he took, put it like that. Jimmy Young just outpointed him, just outboxed him. I mean, Foreman was pretty much mentally, he was broken, okay, not physically at that point, before he retired and came back. And he came back, was able to do what he could, and he held his own. Now, Joe Frazier, yeah, he got bounced by George Foreman. Styles made fights, and both times it happened the same way. He just couldn't beat George Foreman. Same with Ken Norton. Let's not forget, Larry Holmes' title fight was against who? Ken Norton, and they had a war, man, for 15 rounds, 12 rounds or whatever, 15 rounds, whatever it was. And they went back and forth, back and forth. Now, Pacquiao got dropped. One shot, bam, by Marquez. Now, we can go on about that, and that was not the point that these guys got a loss, okay? And Pacquiao already had 3 losses before that, you know, from early on in his career. The difference between Deontay Wilder and why people feel like he can't come back the same way, and we'll see. But the reason is this. It was a one-sided beating, man. He got beat up. Let's not make it sound like this was a back and forth, and then he just got caught. He pretty much got beat up, man. And the first 2 rounds wasn't as brutal, but from the third on, once he started, I mean, it was just, he just got beat up, man. You saw his face, you saw his mouth, you saw his ear. And not only that, okay, he is still making excuses. He's still trying to get in our heads to make us think that, no, that wasn't me. It was I had complications. It wasn't the same. He went from all of that to he got to get rid of the snakes. And I mean, instead of just saying, you know what, the better man won, We'll do it again next time. Next time. It's his night. He did his thing. Next time, hey, I applaud you. We the two best heavyweights, like you said, right? Him and Fury was the two best heavyweights, right? But he's saying he doesn't see him as a champion and all of this. When I watch it, I still can't believe it. I was like a zombie in there. Like, look, that's someone who cannot get a grip on reality. That you lost to a guy that is just a better fighter than you. Period, man. And basically, from the very first fight, where you cherry pick to think that he's not going to be the same as before, but for name's sake, he'll be a victim on my record, and it didn't work. So now, after getting beat up like he did, and making excuses about it, and all of the talking, I mean, all of the your king will rise from the ashes like a phoenix, blah, blah, blah. He still has not come to the realization that, you know what, man, this guy was just a better fighter, and he won that night. Next time, we got a chance to do it again, and I'm going to get him. Point blank. So, no, Foreman didn't get destroyed over 7 rounds. You know, get beat up that way. And he did make excuses. But even, it took Foreman a long time to finally come to be able to just say, you know what, Ali got me. It took him a long time to finally come to that conclusion, but he finally did. And that's why he was able to come back in his second career and be able to have some success, because, you know, you can't go in the ring, even like, for example, with Deontay Wilder saying, he accused, not accused, he ridiculed Fury for changing, you know, adding people to his team or changing trainers. Said AJ needed to change trainers. He talked a lot, you know, even from when AJ fought Klitschko, there's some things he need to work on, you know, stuff like that, man. And like talking like he's such a polished fighter himself, when AJ is clearly much better than Wilder. As a fighter, you know, but he got beat up, and he's talking like his ability does not parallel his arrogance, his ego, okay, his attitude. He says things, but he's not as good as he talks. So for him, if he felt like he had complications and there was things that went wrong, and he understands why he lost, but it wasn't because Fury was the better man, then why would you have to change anything in training? I mean, even in the fight, he never tried to move his head. He never tried to parry shots. The only thing he did was back straight up and, you know, the mummy stuff, putting his hands up and throwing punches. He looked terrible. He had no plan B, plan C, nothing. He was just on plan A, lowercase plan A. He had nothing. So to think that he is all of a sudden going to come in the ring, by the time he fight again, he'll be 35, okay? And him saying, or his wife saying that he's going to fight until he's 40, that doesn't change anything. That's your plans. That's your plans to fight until you're 40, okay? That doesn't mean that it's going to actually happen that way. Now, this is not me wishing anything bad on the guy. What I'm saying is, the things he need to learn. Now, Buddy McGirt himself saying, oh, it's just one thing he need to learn. Just one thing or something that he need to change or whatever. No, man, there's many things that guy needs to work on everything. You know, Buddy might have been just trying to get that call, hey, you know, could you come in and train me? Or I don't know, whatever. But whatever, man. But Wilder needs to work on every goddamn thing. Everything. And Wilder is not, none of these guys are getting any younger. Even when AJ says, you know, by the time he's been in the sport as long as Fury, imagine where he'll be then. Yeah, well, that's all we can do until we get there. You don't know. For us to sit and watch and go from performance to, you know, from one fight to the next, that's what we have to go by. We don't know. We can only imagine or assume. But for that, I'm not one of those people that want to imagine what you're going to be like. No, we just have to see it. And so far, man, he's done phenomenal. I mean, look at what he's done in such a short time. But at the end of the day, he's 30 now. Everybody don't sustain the same level of greatness for a level of greatness for the same amount of time, man. Some people might be great from 24 to 28. Some people might be great from 24 to 38. I mean, I'm just saying, we don't know. So we have to go by what we see fight by fight. But at the same time, I understand the point he's saying. But for you to work your butt off and you know what the dedication that you have and the work you're putting in, that's why part of that is when the fighter's career is over, that's when we can really sit back and assess how good you were better. Because while it's happening, I want to be able to enjoy it. Then after, okay, let's sit back and, okay, cool. You know what? This guy was, but Wilder, like I said, man, even like with AJ got dropped. It's not that he just went in and got beat up, around it. No, he got dropped. You understand what I'm saying? And he was getting right back up. And it's not like he took a terrible punishment. You understand what I'm saying? Wilder was bleeding from the mouth, from the ear, jaw all swollen. Wilder looked, he got his ass beat. Fury was hitting him. Remember, Fury dropped him with a body shot. Remember, I mean, the guy just got beat up, and he had no plan, nothing to back that up on. AJ was smart enough to know, I know what I need to do to beat Ruiz in a rematch. And despite the ridicule, I mean, and even in that sense, for Wilder to say, oh man, all he did was run. What you mean all he did was run? If you had a plan B or a plan C against Fury, maybe the fight would have turned around different for you. But the guy had nothing at all. And when you watch the fight, people are spending so much time trying to prove some glove gate nonsense, which wasn't even in the second fight, but it was bogus anyway. And, oh, he was hitting behind the head. Every excuse. Look at Wilder in that fight. You guys can still believe that costume nonsense. You can still believe that, his eyes was bothering him because of the costume and the weight of the costume or whatever. He had complications in the back. Oh, he had snakes in his grass. You can believe all the excuses. The reality is the better man won. The record books is not going to change because of that. And even if he comes back in the rematch and look better, it doesn't erase what happened that night. It just means, hey, on this night, you were the better man. Or even if you still lost, but you look better, bottom line is, you got beat. And you got beat up bad, man. And you got embarrassed. And the same things that you laughed at AJ and talked about how it never happened to you, and then it happened to you. And when you break that down, that a person cannot realize that, you know what, man, I have to change some things about me. I have to learn how to box. When they can't do that, they're never going to be better. But if you just had the complications, it's just like for me, let's just say, for example, if I know I'm going into a fight, and let's say I hurt my hand, okay, and it's to the point it pains me to move it. It pains me that when I hit, it's like, and I go through with the fight. You know what? I know, and I'm in the fight, and I just can't throw the. I gotta use one hand, and I'm not able to do the things I need to do. I know, in the rematch, I can beat this guy, but my hand needs to be healed. It's like Holyfield going into the fight with Bo, the third fight with Bo, and Holyfield had hepatitis. We didn't know about that until a long time after the fight happened. So, the thing is, fighters get hurt, injuries happen. Let's not be stupid. It's not like every time somebody says something, it's an excuse. It's an excuse. Now, in fairness, most people don't say, well, I had hepatitis or this and that. And there's times where fights happen. I remember Deontay had one fight, and he said he had to fight with one hand. And, for the most part, most people don't say, well, I had an injury, even though I won. So, in defeat, it's better to just keep it a secret too, right? Just don't even mention it. So, for Wilder, and even in that fight with Holyfield having hepatitis, he had Bo, man. And then he couldn't throw punches. Dropped him, and Bo got up, and Holyfield, he couldn't do anything, man. But that's the way things happen sometimes. But we know Holyfield was battle tested, and that Holyfield had skills. Wilder has just been a one-trick pony, and basically there's been no real development in him. We haven't seen combination punches. We haven't seen swift combinations and head movement and, you know, be able to get on his legs and move. We haven't seen any of that. So that's the reason when people are saying they don't see him being a champion again and that he's been exposed. To me, he's been exposed a long time ago. Fighting lesser opponents and having trouble with him before he could finally knock them out. And then when he do knock them out, it's always the same thing. Right hand or jab right hand. Because you know how he jumps, it literally leaps in the air and then comes behind the comes behind the right hand, which is smart because your body weight is behind it, and he's literally in the air. And at 6'7", it's hard for his opponents to counter that when he does that. But at the end of the day, once people really look at you and study you and break you down, then this guy has nothing but a right hand. So as far as his dominance and whatever, well, here's what I'm saying: don't come back against some meatballs. Now, if he's willing to go back in there against Fury. And what I'm saying, I think Fury's going to beat him again. Personally, I think Fury is just a better fighter, and I just think Fury is not only, he's stronger mentally as well, and I think he's going to beat him again. And after that, do they bring him back by trying to rebuild his confidence again? Now, this is just me saying this, but do they try to rebuild him by giving him lesser fight opponents, and then let's try to set up a big one again with AJ or with whoever? Because you got people like Daniel Dubois, Joe Joyce, you got these guys, Dylan White still there, Joseph Parker, you know, Ruiz. If he's not going to stay, you know, in that category, you know, to fight the top category of fighters, I mean, he's only getting older. All of them are. But where does he go from there? So that's why when people are saying that, man, it's like, I understand that. When I say it, that's why I say it. Because mentally, he's still in denial. And he took a beating, man. And for him to just come back and all of this, you know, strength and conditioning coaches and stretching and all this, yeah, now all of a sudden you're changing up what you're saying. You only lost due to complications. You just wasn't yourself. Then why change anything at all, man? I mean, and this is something that's just elementary. You think about it. You don't change something because you had complications. You change something because, you know what, I can't beat this guy fighting this way. It's like Ray Leonard having a fight completely different in a rematch with Duran because it didn't work out the first time. You know, he wasn't going to win that way. Wilder had no answers for anything. I mean, nothing. Even timing. When if you watch, a lot of times Fury got to the point where Fury was doing sloppy shit that he couldn't counter with. If you look at it, look how many times Fury would throw that jab out. He was got to push it out. Wouldn't even snap it, pushing it, and he ducked down like this, and he'd come in, and his feet is squared up. The same way how he was able to catch Ortiz for squaring up. He couldn't do it with Fury, and he was just, you know what I mean, and just one punch at a time and slap punches. At the end of the day, he has to make the right adjustments, not just physically, but mentally. And I feel like Wilder is just too emotional, and that he is in denial about things, and it's not going to help him improve as a fighter. And until he does that, he's going to be stuck in the same boat. Anyway, that's all I want to say on this video, and I will catch y'all on the next.